Alex, if I've learned anything this week, it is that staying up until 2 in the morning 4 nights in a row is you. I can't do it anymore.
What has led you to this bizarre sleeping schedule that you've maintained this week?
Just an experiment.
Yeah.
Just to try and run myself ragged, just to see am I capable of having a work day while having the minimal amount of sleep. Hey, I've been playing Alien Isolation, which
Ah.
we can get to in a second, but just fuck. I'm
Yeah,
tired.
I don't recommend that. There was a period earlier in my life before I was working at a job regularly where I was staying up until like 3 or 4 in the morning every night, and then sleeping until like noon or 1 in the afternoon, and that was by far the most tired all the time that I had ever been. It's not a good thing. You shouldn't do that.
No, I it's weird to think about when I worked for MTV. So I was probably, let's see, moved out to San Francisco when I was 22. Da, 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 da. I think I was 23, edge of 24 for the year that I worked for MTV. And one of the regular sort of news bits that I would write every couple of weeks was like something along the lines of up till 3 a.m. and it was just like the game that I just couldn't put down and had to explain why I would sacrifice that much sleep to keep playing it. And now I cannot even fathom staying up until 3 a.m. playing a video
Oh
game.
yeah. No, it's
I
like
can't even write that feature anymore.
I do it every once in a while on weekends, if there's
Sure,
something
yeah.
I'm really into playing or whatever. But it is like by the time like 1 o'clock, 1:30 comes knocking, I am in such a daze and I am in such a way that it becomes useless to continue playing because mentally I am just so not there that I can't actually accomplish anything. So by the time like 2 in the morning rolls around, I'm like, this is just pointless. I have to go to bed. I have to go to bed.
Yeah, so I've been playing Alien and I had the hope of having a review up in time for the embargo, but one of the things that comes up when you review games is, and it's totally, this is something that people who reviewers talk about, and it's a totally fair criticism from the reader side, is that sometimes the process interferes with the reviewing, in
Right.
which you play a game in a natural way that sometimes exasperates the problems of a game because you're playing it in a condensed period of time that most human beings would not. And so, I had hoped to have gotten Alien last week, but it didn't show up because I was trying to. It's a game that I would finish in a week, but like spread out. Like there's no way that I would sit down and play. Because I don't do this for most games anymore, and especially not for a horror game. I wouldn't sit down and play it for a 6-hour stretch. Like it's just
Right.
my nerves get frazzled. You're gonna start getting frustrated at just the way horror games play, traditionally speaking, and so it's just not what I would do. And so I wanted to try and get as close to the authentic experience as possible, so which means spreading it out, and then also means it's a horror game, so I can't play it till it's dark out.
Right.
The way my downstairs is set up, I can't really do blackout curtains with, it's also it wasn't gonna I wasn't able to simulate darkness without actually waiting till 7 o'clock. And between that at 7 o'clock, well, I got to eat dinner, do at least something with my wife, like watch some show or something. And so it's not till like 9 o'clock till I start playing, and I've been doing it all week, but that game is longer than I thought.
This is going to turn into some kind of like nightmarish compulsion for you, right? Like as time goes on, it's not just going to be horror games. It's going to be every single thing that you do. It's like I can't eat breakfast. It's not dark outside. I can't write. It's not dark outside.
That's all of October.
That's going to turn into your whole life at some point. If you're not very careful about how you regulate that, next thing you know, you're not going to be able to do anything unless it's dark outside.
Uh, in some ways, that sounds hilarious. In other ways, that sounds really bad. That sounds
Yeah.
really bad. But so yeah,
I
I've
can't
been
tend
playing.
the fields. It's dark. It's not dark outside. Sorry. Anyway, go on. Tell me about Alien. Tell me about your experience as an alien thus far.
I am mixed.
Mm.
And it's if you ever had a game that when you play it, you have the distinct feeling that most other people are probably going to like it more than you.
Hmm.
Like you can play it, like playing the game, you realize the things that are bothering me, I can definitely see how this wouldn't bother a lot of other people, but they bother me. So that's the honest reaction. But um, that's kind of the sense I had with Alien because part of the reason I wanted to review it was I could not have higher expectations for this game. Um, it feels like a game that was made for me, and then as a result, I mean, I want this game to be incredible. And in spurts, Alien Isolation is absolutely incredible. I think for a lot of people, did you see you saw The Conjuring from last summer, right?
I did, yes. I watched
So
it on an airplane, which was not the ideal way to watch it, but I did watch it.
weird. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Um, that's not the scariest movie ever made, but it was a huge hit, and there were a lot of folks that played it that aren't traditionally into horror movies and was like, oh, it's the scariest movie I've ever seen. I think Alien Isolation has the opportunity to potentially be like that, in which if you've played a lot of horror games, if you're very familiar with the genre, especially the relatively no combat cat and mouse type of game that, if you
Hmm.
played an Amnesia or
Right.
something like that, the faults of Alien, I think, are heightened because of that. But for most people who are maybe getting drawn into this game because of the Alien license, or because of some of the hype, or because they don't really play horror games all that often, I think they're going to have a blast. I think that it's going to be the scariest thing they've ever played because in stretches it is absolutely that. It is absolutely the scariest thing I've ever played. The the parts where it falls apart for me, it's way too long. I think it is 20 hours, which is long for just a game these days, but extremely long for a horror game in which the vast majority of what you do is like running in between AI patterns.
Right.
Um, and so I think it has serious issues there that are heightened by the fact that it goes on for as long as it does. And the story doesn't really justify. There are pacing issues that I have issue with that don't really help justify its length. But um, so one thing that I was thinking about while playing Alien.
Hmm.
Have you seen Jaws 4?
Is that the one in the theme park?
No, that's 3.
Okay, then I haven't seen Jaws 4.
So Jaws 4, in which Michael Caine was not able to accept his lone Oscar because he was filming Jaws 4, which is funny, really funny,
That's really incredible
because
and sad.
Jaws 4 is a really bad movie.
Yeah.
And Jaws 4 is essentially so Jaws 1 and 2 are about the Brody family and that beach. And Jaws 2 is not very good as well, but it's about this family and this one beach, and you can buy into the idea that there are more sharks near this beach in the second one. The third one is when it goes into B movie territory. I like Jaws 3. I think it's goofy as hell in a really fun way.
The slow shark
Yeah.
ambling toward the tank window, and everyone just standing there going ah, as this little thing just kind of.
Yeah, so good. And if you've never watched it with the crappy 3D glasses, highly recommended. Because Jaws 3 was released in theaters in 3D. Back when
Back
they
before
were
3D.
yeah,
Back when
crappy
3D
3D.
was like 3D.
And so Jaws 4: The Revenge is, and this is going somewhere, I promise. But
Okay.
it also if it ends up just being a recommendation for Jaws 4, I'm okay with that because I should have put it on my list. It's
There's
so
always
dumb.
next year.
Jaws 4 sees the return of Brody's wife. Now Brody has died. I think he's in the second one, but he has
It isn't.
passed. Yeah, he has passed away. Brody, the sheriff of the town,
Yeah.
has passed away by the fourth one. And Brody's wife, can't remember why the whole premise. Basically, she's on another tropical island. She is not near the beach that we all are familiar with from Jaws 1 and 2. And I believe her son, the son from the first two movies, has grown up at this point. And they're on this different island, but that damn shark family, that same shark family from 1 and 2, has followed the Brody family to a different tropical island. As though the shark has a psychic connection to this family and is interested in exacting revenge for having killed its family members.
I mean, I don't know if you know this, but sharks are well documented as the only predators in nature besides humans that hold grudges. So this is science. This makes perfect sense.
Well, not, is that true? No, no,
No.
that's not true. I
No,
know.
of course not. Of
I
course
know. I
not.
know. You got me to. You started to freak me out for a second.
Yeah. You
But
haven't slept in a while. I understand. Sorry,
yeah.
I won't fuck with you anymore.
So it's a movie about a shark with a grudge, like a psychic grudge. Like it's preposterous in a lot of really great ways. And that's a little bit of what I have an issue with. A lot of what I have an issue with in terms of the plotting of Alien Isolation, in which this alien, this xenomorph, really has it out for you. And the game does a brilliant job of taking a long time to introduce it. You go like a full 90 minutes before any trace of the xenomorph shows up. And that part is really great because you're like, oh man, every moment that they don't introduce it is a moment where you're going, oh well, they've got to do it soon, right? They've got to do it soon. And so it builds tension by not building any tension, which is it's fantastic. It's a great device that you can only get away with in the beginning of the game before you've done any sort of reveal. But Alien Isolation does that really well. Jaws 4 doesn't do it very well.
No, not so
But
much.
but once the creature is introduced, it is attached to you at the hip. And the game constantly gives you glances to the rest of this space station that you're at. So they've kept kind of the larger setup for this game under wraps. I mean, they've talked about it, but they haven't like made it a big point. Like you've come to a space station seeking the flight recorder for the Nostromo, which was the ship from the original Alien, and Ripley's daughter, who is now grown up, is like seeking closure for what happened to her mother. And so she's an engineer, and they're heading to pick up this flight recorder. And then you get to this space station, and all hell has broken loose. But there are other humans. There are people running around. It is not a desolate space station. Like, things have gone wrong, very wrong, but there are other people running around. And it's big. It's enormous. The glimpses you get of it are, like, this thing is miles long. Miles and miles long. It is an enormous space station. And yet, this alien finds you, which is not, of course, it's an alien game that the alien's going to find you. But once it does, it's with you for like 12 hours. Every single sequence. And the game doesn't give a particularly good justification for that. Like, it's just, it feels a little tiring at times. And the reason I kept thinking of Jaws 4, because it's like, what, is just the Ripley family damned to be stalked by these like random creatures of the dark? Like, no, but the game is, playing in a world in which like the main enemy is this xenomorph, and thus the xenomorph's got to follow you everywhere you go. And that part gets tiring because it becomes hard to justify in like the 10th sequence of, there are humans everywhere this alien could be fucking with. Why does it continue to follow me?
Now, how, and you don't need to give too much away here, but my understanding is that, like you said, there is a decent number of other human characters in the game kind of spread throughout the station that you interact with, and it's not like the full complement or crew that you would have had. Like, it's sort of like the remaining tatters of a complement that is still on the station. How much interaction have you actually had with those people versus the xenomorph just like constantly stalking you?
So yeah, they try and use the humans as a way of mixing up your interactions with the xenomorph more in the beginning than later on, and that's one of the really promising ideas that doesn't go anywhere at all. You'll have some brief interactions with humans, and like one of the tooltips that like plays in the loading screens says something along the lines of, be careful when you approach humans. Not everyone is aggressive. Every single group of humans that I approached immediately started shooting me.
That's a lot of aggression.
Yeah, I thought what was going to happen was that possibly you would encounter, because the space station has been hunted by this creature for seemingly weeks, and they're in desperate groups in which food and water and resources have become, basically non-existent. So they're just like these feral scavengers that are barely keeping themselves together. And what I thought how the system might work, and what's suggested by the tooltip, is that if you cautiously approach a group, like maybe you could team up. Maybe you could go through an area together, or maybe you could get resources from them, or maybe you could get trade. Like maybe there'd be some sort of interaction. But all I found was that occasionally you'd come across a static NPC that is crying and upset, and you have zero interaction with, and is not moving around. Every other human character wants to shoot you and wants to kill you, and is not willing to listen to reason. And it was pretty disappointing. But what was funny is that fighting them is infuriating, because a lot of them have body armor and you don't. And if they have a shotgun, you will die in one hit. And this game has checkpoint issues that we can talk about in a second. But if you just kind of sneak into their area and then wait for them to fire, and as long as you're in the part of the game in which the xenomorph is constantly on your tail, the xenomorph will just straight up show up and kill everyone, and it's awesome. Like, it's really great. So these people are like, "Hey, you motherfucker, get the fuck out! We're gonna kill you!" Bang, 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 and then just woo, takes everyone out, and then just sprints away. Fantastic,
but not too
really
far
satisfying.
away, because you're going to run into him again pretty quickly. It sounds like.
Yeah. It's hard to tell that if you get aggressive with the alien, it does seem like it responds with aggression as well, in which, so at some point in the game you get access to a flamethrower, because of course you do. And you can shoot the fire at it when it's coming at you, and it'll kind of get scattered away. And I found when you got aggressive with the alien that it then was showing up more often. So it's like, yes, you can scare it away, but now it's pissed off. Whereas if you are constantly crouching and hiding and biding your time, then it shows up less often. But the thing, and this is tough for every horror game, and it's tough for every horror game that is largely not about combat. So you have tools in Alien Isolation. You can build smoke bombs, EMPs, Molotov cocktails. You have access to a couple of weapons that you have very limited ammunition for. You can't kill the xenomorph, obviously, but they're mostly just tools to distract things. I found most of them to not be particularly useful. I don't know. It could be the case that people who play the game find all sorts of strategies I didn't discover, but it mostly seemed like the game gives you blueprints to build all of these objects that you can craft in the world, but then never says, like, here's the situation to use it, or when it would be useful. And because you're very limited in resources, the game doesn't encourage you to experiment, because by experimenting you're using up the very few resources that you have, which is sort of like one of the weird push and pulls that the game has. But so with horror stuff, and like I said with cat and mouse stuff, the first time you die, especially as you subsequently die in a specific sequence, you stop reacting to the horror or the tension, and you start breaking down very specific AI patterns. Like, what is this creature doing when I do this? What pattern is it following? Which, if you like playing the game that way, that's fine. But I found that to be deeply unsatisfying when I'm just hiding in a closet, waiting 5 to 7 minutes for the alien to stop pacing around the room in front of me, to go right instead of left, and well, it went left, so now I gotta wait till it comes back around in the room again, and then heads over to the right. And it's moments like that that are really, really frustrating, in which you're just waiting for an artificial intelligence to go down a very specific pattern so that you can move through an area. And that stuff's not fun. That stuff is not fun, and it happens a lot. It really does happen a lot, and in a way that even my wife, who was watching me play a significant chunk of this game, was like, "Seems like you do a lot of just waiting in this game." It's like, yeah, yeah, you do. You do a lot. You do a lot of
Yeah.
waiting.
Well, that's kind of a shame. I mean, look, I would still prefer what you're talking about here to, say the Colonial Marines approach of we're just going to kill lots of xenomorphs because they're the dumbest fucking creatures we could program. But that doesn't sound like a lot of fun to me. The idea of just standing around in various closets and under tables, waiting for an alien to decide whether it's going to leave the room or not. Because I think that can be used effectively a certain number of times. And if you spread that across just enough game time, that can be very effective. But the impression I've got is that this game is somewhere in the neighborhood of like 20 hours, and that sounds like a slog after a certain amount of time.
Yeah, I just found, and that's where. So you start adopting essentially cautious aggression is the best tactic in the game, which is your immediate gut reaction is to not move and to wait to the most opportune moment. And what you start learning over the course of the game is that actually you want to be more aggressive than your impulses would tell you to. Um, Dark Souls actually works a lot of the same way, in which you you constantly, because of the way you can die in this game so quickly. And once the alien spots you, it's over. Like there's nothing you can do. You're gonna die in one hit. Like there's no way that you're going to be able to counter that. So once you adopt sort of cautious aggressive sort of behavior, you'll start moving through places a lot faster. And they do. The game's actually kind of funny how it realizes that because you're spending a lot of the time hiding, that you might be spending too much of the time hiding and becoming too cautious. So there are moments where the game will try and kind of nudge you out of there. Like, for example, one time I was hiding in a vent, and the alien never did this again. It only happened once in my entire playthrough. But one time it looked at the vent and then just pulled me out of it. and
Oh
and
wow.
and it never happened again, but it was one of those. Clearly, the AI is obviously aware of where you are at all times, and then the fun of the game is how the AI plays with your reaction to it. But it was a sequence where I'm just staring at the alien, knowing that it's never going to come after me because it never does, and then just pulls me out and kills me. There was another sequence where I was hiding in a closet, and it had passed by me 4 or 5 times. And then, like, the 6th time, it just yanked me out of the closet. So there are moments where the game says, come on, dude, like, get your ass moving, and tries to encourage you to play a little more aggressive. But what also happens with these AI games, and this is especially apparent in an early sequence in the game, is that once you know what to do, you can kind of just die and run through it. This is less true with the alien, because the alien, when you create noise, it's going to come out, and if you cannot outrun the alien. But it's still, the general principle holds up to be mostly true. But so there's an early sequence in which you're trying to avoid a bunch of androids that have gone bananas for a reason I will not get into for plot reasons. But scary-looking androids. These are not the human looking androids that you're familiar with from the Alien franchise. These are like much more humanoid, like robotic looking. They're very creepy, and a bunch of them are stalking this set of hallways you're trying to get through. And the first time I went through the hallway, it took me like 25 minutes, and I had the ideal experience in which, like, I'm just barely making it around corners, and things are stalking me, and I'm hiding in these little areas, and it's so, I'm screaming, and it's scaring the shit out of me. I'm having a ton of fun, and I'm having exactly the experience I want to have with a game like this. And I make it through, and I get to the next area, and then I just happen to take a wrong turn and walked a little too fast. The alien pops out, kills me. My last save was at the beginning of the android sequence.
Oh boy.
So the game doesn't checkpoint. The game is based on save points, and it was just deflating. Like I was like, I don't want to do that again. Like I don't want to go through that sequence again. And so my wife was like, I think I might go read a book if you're just gonna do that for another 25 minutes, and you can let me know when you get through it. And I said, well, let me try something. So that 25-minute sequence, I just sprinted past all of the androids and got to the end in under a minute.
Oh my god.
Now, granted, that's a legitimate way to play, right? Like, sure, like you can do that, but it's also not really the way to play, right? Like, I don't mean to say it's an invalid way to play, but the game is about the push and pull and the tension and the cat and mouse with the creatures in the world, and I just basically broke it by sprinting to the end and getting to exactly where I needed to go in.
You sprinted right past design intent right there. Like you
Yeah.
just said, "Yep, no, I'm done with this," and then you made it through. And that's one. It's amazing that you were able to do that successfully. That's kind of incredible that that actually worked. Second, that is really sad because this carefully constructed sequence of terror and horror is essentially rendered null by the fact that you can just kind of run right past it. That's weird. That's funny, but also kind of sad.
Yeah, and that is the most broken of a sequence that I was able to sort of short circuit playing the game, but and it's not even really Alien Isolation's fault. It is, I mean, it is in that it chose to be this type of game, but it's inherent to this type of, like, if you want to not have any fun with a horror game, if you just want to break the experience for yourself, like, you can. That's just how horror works. Horror requires that you sort of engage with it, right? Like, Alien Isolation is someone in the chat uses the term funhouse. I think funhouse is a good way to look at it. Like, it's a game that you have to come to the table wanting to play. If you don't want to do what it's asking you to do, or saying, like, here's kind of the way to play the game, you can break it in some pretty substantial ways. But I think most people that are here for the game want to play it, in the way that I had the ideal setup of, playing for 20, 25 minutes, slowly working my way through it, barely avoiding, getting into an occasional fight where the android throws me to the ground and then sprinting away. Like, I had those moments, and those are the moments you want. It's just also realizing when you get frustrated, it's possible to sort of like do the thing in D4, put your fingers to your temple, see all of the AI patterns in front of you, and go, oh, I'll just wait till this part and then go.
Right.
And yeah, so it's interesting in that regard. Like I said, I didn't have a sequence that was that bad, but it's indicative to the genre. It just sort of happens with these games where it's a player watching AI patterns and responding to them.
Sure.
So I don't know. I feel like I've harped on the negativity a lot in this 30 minutes that I've been discussing the game for a game that I do like quite a bit. It's more just, part of when you review a game, when you're at the end of that process and you're kind of exasperated with the elements of the game that have bothered you, those are kind of the things that are top of mind.
Well, and I think that's important stuff because, you can come out and you can just say, oh, I had a lot of fun with it, and then just kind of leave it at that. But it sounds like there are some fairly fundamental issues with the design of the game, the pacing of the game. And I think those are important things to note because that is the stuff for me that was hinging on my interest in playing it. Like, I want to play a game like that, but I don't want to play a game like that for 20 hours if it's going to be repeating a lot of the same tactics over and over again. I imagine I could have some fun with Alien Isolation, but that doesn't necessarily sound like a game that I would want to finish.
Yeah, it's definitely probably a game that the longer you can spread it out, the better, if only because then maybe that will cut down on the repetition of it, just because you're spreading it out. But I mean, one of the things that's amazing about it, it's all the small details. Okay, it's fucking gorgeous. It is one of the prettiest. Is probably the wrong. It's very pretty, but in like a horrifying, disgusting way. They nail the Alien 1979 aesthetic.
Just the kind of like humid, kind of just unpleasant sort of, just industrial future technology kind of look that they had going on.
It feels like there's something about that, late 70s or early 80s Star Wars, Alien aesthetic. Like it feels very mechanical. Like it's
Hmm.
obvious that like a lot of the technology in those films are like they don't come across as magic. They feel like very much like evolutions of the technology we have now, but just sort of like transplant. Like there's CRTs and like shit like that, like everywhere. Like it feels very human and very like built and in a way. Like it's what I love about that sort of like ship structure and aesthetic from that era. And man, Alien Isolation like nails it. It feels like you are walking around in Alien, and it's a game that has such the small details are what make me love it so much. Like for example, so you have the radar, obviously, because it's an Alien game,
Yeah.
and the radar when you pull it out, um, the your field of view blurs. So the radar becomes sharp because obviously, if you were looking at the radar, you wouldn't be looking anywhere else. But the game doesn't move your viewpoint. It doesn't make like the radar your full screen, which would be the normal way to block your field of view. Instead, it just blurs it. So you still get a sense of what's going on, but you can't really make out everything that's happening.
Mm.
And it sort of simulates like the corner of your eye by allowing you to look at the radar, but blurring out what's in front of you. But then if you hit R2, it sharpens everything in front of you and then blurs the radar,
Ah.
as if to suggest like you're darting in between the two of them, and you're doing that with the flick of a button. It's genius. Like it's incredibly useful for when you're making your way like around enemies and or the alien, for example, in which you constantly want to have that radar out because you want to know where the creature is, but you obviously don't want a Vaseline screen, and
Right.
so you're swapping between the two. It becomes this real risk reward in which the risk is not being able to fully see what's in front of you, but the reward is being able to track it accurately in your hand. And such a subtle decision that says a lot about the values of the game and is really satisfying as the player.
Mm.
Um, Another one that I hope every single video game adopts. So this game, like so many others, has audio diaries for
Oh,
no
good.
particularly good reason. Even though the first audio diary like ends with this character going, "Is it recording? Do these things even work?" This is just it's don't put in something that you think is stupid and then justify it by having the in-game characters call it stupid. I don't like it. That's dumb. but when you pick up or trigger an audio diary in Alien Isolation, um, a countdown timer starts next to the name of the character who's reading it, so you know exactly how much time is left on the audio diary, and you can walk away from it. You don't have
Mm.
to stand near it. It's just, oh, it's beautiful because you know not to move into the next sequence for like 7 more seconds, which would then maybe break up the audio and you wouldn't be able to hear it, and you don't have to stay right near where the audio triggers in order to hear. It's just both those little details were fantastic,
Yeah.
and I really really enjoyed them. I wish every game had a countdown timer on its audio diaries. I didn't know I wanted it until I had it, and then suddenly I realized I wish every game. Well, I wish games just stopped having audio diaries, but if you're gonna have them, I thought that was a neat little
I
thing.
was kind of hoping that South Park would be the end of audio diaries because of how pleasantly they managed to skewer that whole concept in that game, and then people would just look at that and go, okay, no more of those. But then, Alien's been in development for a long time, so it wasn't like they were just gonna be like, well, they're done. We should just take these out. Um, I will say I'm incredibly encouraged by the motion tracking stuff you just mentioned, because that was one of the things that drove me absolutely the most nuts in Colonial Marines was. And then, granted, that game was an action game. That was not a horror game. You were not really meant to be scared in that game. And if they claim that you were, they are liars. But the fact that the motion tracker, like, you could hold it up and you'd use it to track aliens that were in the area, but you never had to. You could just put it on your belt, and then it would ping anytime an alien was nearby without you doing anything, which was just such a cheap, shitty move of just like, we don't actually want you to feel any tension. We just want you to know when the aliens are going to come so you can shoot them faster, which I thought was horrendous. This sounds like with the shift in focus and just kind of the fact. Well, first off, there's no combat in the game really, so that's a good step. But I like the idea that they're actually using that device effectively the way it is intended to be used as a tension building device versus just something there to kind of let you know that you're about to die.
Yeah, and there is combat in this game. It's portrayed as Ripley's daughter can defend herself, but she's not good at it, and that's totally true. Like you get like this multi-tool wrench. I forget what they call it in the game, mechanical something, that you can beat things over the head with, whether it's androids or some of the humans that are aggressive that you come across. But you don't, combat is not something you want to engage in. You often want to, you get by the end of the game, 4 different types of weapons, but you're going to want to use what you have to avoid combat. Sometimes that will mean still attacking, right? Like you can build pipe bombs. So it might be that you use a noisemaker to gather a group of 3 androids together and then toss a pipe bomb. I will say one of the most terrifying things I learned was when you get the flamethrower. Then I got real confident with the flamethrower. I was like just straight up. You spend 99% of the game you spend crouching, because you make less noise that way. But I get the flamethrower, and then I can keep the alien at bay. So I'm just walking around like, where are you, alien? Come out. I'm gonna keep walking towards my objective. And then I've got, if I come across a human, just torch them. And then I came across some androids, and I was like, what's up? Not gonna stop me now. I got this flamethrower. And then torch the android. They just keep walking. They don't fall down. They don't die. Their eyes are blazing red, and they just keep coming at you with flames all over them.
Oh, that's so unpleasant.
And the most unpleasant part is that when an android comes up to you, it doesn't like. So one of its moves it can do is it can just like swing a punch at you. But what's more common is that it gets into this sequence where it grabs you, like it throttles you by the neck and is just swinging you around, and you can mash on the X button to get out of it and try and get some distance between you. But the sequence that happened to me was I lit this android on fire. I kept backing up. I kept blazing it. Nothing stopping it. And then I'm fumbling to try and switch to a gun, and it comes up to me and starts wringing my neck while it is blazing on fire. It is an inferno and android demon creature.
Oh my god.
It's just going, and it's saying like, I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you. And it is on fire. And the game is smart enough to like be inflicting more damage on me because the creature is giving me, as Mary McCheese in the chat points out, a flame hug. And it was amazing. I was literally screaming, half because it was hysterical and half because I was terrified that this creepy android had done this. I found other like really unsettling moments akin to that in which I lit one of the androids on fire and then hid in a spot where it couldn't get me, and then it just resumes its route on fire. And
amazing.
It's
amazing.
It's great. It was a brilliant sequence. I loved it, and it was amazing. So I have talked a lot about Alien. I will have more thoughts on Alien on Monday when I get my review together. But it's a game whose faults feel. I guess my conclusion for now, before I'm going to finish it tonight. I'm very close to the end. Is that it's a game whose faults I think are largely forgivable, are exasperated by the fact that it has to be a $60 game that is a certain length.
Right.
I think the realities of the marketplace it's released to end up hurting the game. That's not an excuse. Those problems still exist. But the fact that this fucking game exists makes me so goddamn happy.
Yeah.
It is a big budget amnesia game starring a xenomorph, and for the most part, they pull it off. The things that I'm upset about I'm upset about, but man, for the most part, they really nail it, and I'm just so glad it exists. I'm just so glad it exists. It shouldn't exist, and I really hope it's successful. Um, I'd love if this team made a game like this and it didn't have a xenomorph.
Yeah.
I'm kind of tired of that creature. I would love something new.
Yeah, it's a shame to say that because the xenomorph is, to my mind, still one of the most just physically imposing and deeply terrifying creatures I've ever seen in film. But as far as a video game villain goes, it has been used so poorly so many times that it's the idea of even a game that gets it partially right still sounds reasonably exciting to me because very few have actually gotten the terror of the xenomorph correct. And it sounds like, at its worst, sometimes it fucks that up, but, at the very least, there are those moments where you feel the kind of terror you would have felt in Alien versus Aliens and its later ilk.
Yeah. It's all
That's
right.
cool.
I'm gonna stop talking about Alien.
Stop talking about Alien for now.
I'll have plenty more to say, but I'm gonna stop talking about Alien. You played Shadow of Mordor.
I've played a few different things this
Yeah,
week.
what do you want to talk about? Because we're almost 45 minutes into this. We can go a little bit longer. That's fine. But what do you want to talk about?
Well, so just over I played some of The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. I won't extend too many thoughts about that here because there's a whole quick look up where we talk about it at decent length. That is a really interesting, extremely pretty game also that I think most adventure game fans would very much enjoy. So you should watch the quick look or at least some of it and check that out. The rest of the time this week, I've been sort of alternating between Forza Horizon 2 and Shadow of Mordor. I've put about 4 hours into Shadow of Mordor. I probably put about 6 into Forza. I like both games. I've been enjoying both. Obviously, they're fairly different. I will say that I'm kind of surprised that I've been a little bit more leaning toward enjoying Forza than Shadow of Mordor, which is not to say I'm not enjoying Shadow of Mordor, but there are some things about it that are driving me just like a tad nuts right now, and I'm still pretty early into it, so I haven't gotten very deep into to Mordor. I've just done like a couple of the Golem missions, I've done a little bit of the early game stuff, and kind of gone around. The main thing with Shadow of Mordor, which everyone has said this is not a particularly new thing, but the Nemesis system is completely fucking amazing. That shit is really cool.
So can you describe, it sounds like the most interesting stories, so in the early parts of the game are, like, who did you die to first, and then what happened from there?
So I've died a lot.
It seems like a game where you die, you're supposed to die a lot.
Yeah, you are, and it's baked into the story that you are a character who cannot actually die just yet. You have been banished from death, which is a really great way of saying your character can't die because video games.
Woo.
But so, yeah, there's a couple. There's a couple of guys. One, I did all of my Shadow Mordor playing last night, so I'm forgetting some names, but. The main guy is something Grog Flame whatever, but he's a dude with a giant fireman from Mega Man 2 flame helmet, who has just been stalking me like a motherfucker. Like I ran into him a couple of times, and then he just keeps showing up everywhere I go in the damn game, and he has killed me like 5 times, and he is now like an elite captain. He has staved off a bunch of other captains within the Uruk hierarchy and sort of become this ultimate badass, unfortunately at my expense. But that is awesome. Like now I have this genuine like emotional grudge against him, where I am now like constantly seeking him on the map, trying to find him, and still getting killed every damn time because I am not good. Like I haven't upgraded my dude enough. I haven't really gotten strong enough to beat him and his various underlings. But I have never had that kind of specific, immediate, burning hatred for an NPC, like an enemy character that wasn't just like a boss in the traditional structure of video games. To have this guy who just kind of goes around doing his own thing on the map and then just comes in to taunt you about how many times he's killed you is a really effective tactic that I am super duper into and would love to see put into other games. We talked about that on Monday a little bit when Alexa was here about other games we'd like to see that system in. That system really is the game for me because otherwise it really is kind of a Batman / Assassin's Creed not clone, but certainly of that, that lineage. And it does those things well. The combat is pretty good. The exploration stuff is pretty good. The environments are extremely brown, but you're in Mordor, so I guess that's not really surprising. But it does look really nice, and it's a fun game to play around in. I don't think I care about the story or the Lord of the Rings-ness of it at all, but I'm going to keep playing it because I'm really enjoying just kind of futzing around with the Nemesis system, seeing like what kinds of rivalries develop, who I'm able to actually effectively kill, like kind of, and finding new ways to inflict terror on those guys, because I've only just now started playing around with like the intel and actually like plotting raids on them versus just like running up and trying to kill them.
That's kind of amazing. And I think it solves one of those interesting problems, or it's interesting for storytelling because when you set up a villain that like every player is supposed to hate, you have to do a lot of work to earn that. Whereas the Nemesis system creates this very personal relationship that is very individual to the player experience, that is out of them actually playing, as opposed to a scripted story event about a villain they have to then come to dislike, as opposed to the Nemesis system, which is like, you died to this guy, now he's your rival. There you go. And like that's a much more emotional way to create that relationship than for it to happen in cutscenes.
And those orcs have, the orc personalities range between grotesquely nasty and just pretty nasty. Like, there's really not a great deal of range there, but there is enough individual personality in each character, in their taunts, in their dialogue, in the way that they approach you, that does give you that differentiation you need, so you don't just feel like you're constantly going against the same NPCs over and over again. It's fascinating the way they do that, and I imagine it must have been a great, intense script undertaking to write that much dialogue for that many characters. But it's exceptionally well done, that system, and it is making what would otherwise be a pretty solid but perhaps mundane third-person action game into something kind of special. And I'm very, very impressed with what they've done with that.
I am not going to be surprised if 2 years from now we're seeing a lot of games adopt awfully similar systems to the Nemesis system.
Oh, that game is going to be reverse engineered like a motherfucker over the next few years, and that's fine. Like, give me variations on that. Don't just do the same damn thing. Like, find ways to make it, apply correctly to whatever you're doing. But there are any number of circumstances where something like that would be super amazing, and I'm all in favor of other companies trying to get in on that.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. I'm excited to finally check it out. I'll be able to put Alien to bed tonight and then finally actually dig into that. But how was Forza Motorsport 2?
Forza Motorsport 2, I mean, there's not a lot to say about it because it is a visual and mechanical upgrade from Forza Horizon 1. It's the same fundamental game. It's a lot of the same ideas. There's some other stuff in there like the road trips and the just kind of being able to drive anywhere and wreck shit, which I am like the worst person for that kind of game because I'm driving through like these Southern Europe vineyards and like just crashing through grapes and thinking, oh man, these poor business owners, I must be really fucking up their lives. Like, that's not the attitude you're supposed to take with that game. You're supposed to be like, yeah, fuck everything. Nihilism, come on! But no, I just get really sad. But Forza Horizon is a toy. Those games are toys. They give you exquisite environments to drive around in, a ton of cars to play with, and you're just supposed to drive around and have a great time. And that's what that game is doing for me. Like, it's hitting that note exactly the right way for me. It's exactly the kind of game I need to just sort of like cool out for a few hours at the end of a day if I just want to like drive around, see some pretty vistas, just kind of enjoy it. I will say that my experience online thus far, I don't know if this is specific to this game because I haven't really done much online playing on the Xbox One outside of review testing and Titanfall. But every single time I've gotten into a party chat in that game, the chat sounds that come out of the speakers, whether it's my headphones or the TV, are the closest thing to what the sounds of hell must be like. It's just like, just garbled, just like just noises that don't sound human. And maybe it's just my bad luck. Maybe I'm just getting into some bad rooms with some fucked up people or something, or just there's some real shitty connection between us. but it has turned my peaceful little driving game into this unholy nightmare anytime I try to go online. And I don't know what's up with that, and I'm hoping that maybe I can get around that at some point, because it really kind of harshes my mellow when I do that. But as a driving game, it's as a Forza game, it is exactly as fun and as beautiful and as kind of exquisitely rendered as you would want one of those games to be.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I don't play those
You don't play
games.
driving games, I know.
I don't play driving games. But it sounds good. That
weird.
The Horizon games are the closest that I've gotten to maybe being interested, just because it's not on a track.
Did you play Burnout Paradise?
Yeah, I liked Burnout Paradise a lot.
Sometimes I wish that the people making the Horizon games would just be handed the keys to the Burnout license, because I can tell that they worship a little bit at the altar of Paradise, and that's understandable. But obviously, they can't do as much with the damage as they could with Burnout. One of my favorite meta games of the Forza games is trying to figure out which car manufacturers allow damage versus which ones don't. It's like, okay, can I completely fuck this car up, or am I gonna roll this thing and have 2 scratches on it? McLaren, they don't like it when you scratch their cars up. But yeah, I mean, those as an open world driving game, the Horizon games are a ton of fun, and they do just enough of the Forza stuff to make it, make the gameplay smart without having to make it terribly technical. And so that, to me, is what makes them. I mean, I like the hardcore Forza Motorsport games, but after 5, which was just the driest, dullest thing in the world, this is kind of a nice breath of fresh air.
Are you gonna play Drive Club?
I will, but man, I've played Drive Club a couple of times, and it's not that it's bad, it's that it has not left an impression on me at all. It's a game where, yes, you drive cars, and yes, it does look very nice, but I haven't, and maybe it's just because they haven't showed me these social features, which they are so very invested in, but I have not found a thing about that game that has hooked me at all. So that's just, maybe that's just me, but that's kind of where I've been with that one. So I'll play it, but I'm not necessarily expecting a whole lot from it.
There's some Kinect and camera stuff in Alien Isolation that I did not play with. I'm playing it on. I played the game on PS4 for people that were asking. Some folks were asking which platform I was playing it on. And yeah, there's the camera will allow you to lean. And then there's also one that's a noise detector, so that if you were to actually cough, it would cause the world around you to react. Neither of those sounded interesting to me at all. I didn't want my wife shutting the bathroom door to cause me to die. That didn't seem like a fun way to play the game. But
if you were in a room where it was just you and there was no outside noise, and you could actually play with that, that sounds like it could be cool. It just requires very specific circumstances to make it work.
Yeah, I saw Kotaku's Steven Totilo talking about how his apartment in Brooklyn was just, the outside noise was too much, and it was not something he could do to play the game. But the idea of having your physical reaction to a game interact with what's happening on screen, I think is a really neat idea.
It is.
I caution, or I'm skeptical how that feels kind of added on as opposed to integral to the experience. I'd love to see something that was based around just that, something that was noise centric in a way that tried to get you to make noise. So that I don't know. I think there's something there that could be cool, but I didn't mess around with that at all because I don't have a PlayStation camera. But it's an interesting idea anyway.
Yeah.
And some people were asking, I had hoped to do Alien Isolation for Spookin' with Scoops, but obviously I reviewed it, so a horror game played a second time, probably not as interesting.
So what you need to do is you need to bring Dave Lang over.
Uh-huh.
Make him start playing it in your apartment.
I'm not letting Dave Lang in my apartment.
Let's just tape Dave Lang playing Alien Isolation.
I'd really like that idea actually a lot. That's not what I was going to say next, but that's I'm
just throwing it out there. It's a possibility.
All right. Okay, I'm going to think about that one.
All right, think about it.
I'm going to text Dave Lang after the show. But what I was going to say, was that there is DLC for Alien Isolation with the Nostromo edition, in which you, I think, actually play as Ripley in some other scenarios that they've concocted. None of that stuff is live yet. It goes up with the game next week, so there is content that I have not touched that we can kind of dive into. So we will. I'm supposed to do Spoon with Scoops next week on Monday. Maybe I'll swap it for Tuesday, and then we could actually play Alien with the DLC. So I will keep that stuff in mind. But damn, now you've really just railroaded me with this Dave Link suggestion.
Content.
Oh yeah, that's.
I think that would be pretty good.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So what do you got going on this weekend? You just been playing more Forza Motorsport and Shadow of Mordor?
Yeah, I'm gonna dig into those games a little bit more. You know, I want to definitely progress more in Shadow of Mordor to kind of see where things go later on. But you know, the early impressions are very, very strong in that game. Later today, Vinny and I will be actually digging into the first couple of hours of that game live as a sort of pre-show to the Unprofessional Fridays. We are tentatively calling it the GB East Playdate. Vinny has not played any of it yet, and he is really looking forward to getting into it. So I'm going to kind of guide him through some of the early goings of the game and see what Vinny can get up to in the world of Mordor, which I imagine will be pretty stupid.
People are now putting out names. Dave Lang's Sleepover. That's a really great name. That's a good name for.
Get Spooked Boy is pretty good too from Aegon. I like that.
That's pretty good too. That idea is too good. All right. Screw getting John Carpenter to answer more of my questions. We need to get Dave Lang to play scary games.
What if we could get Dave Lang to play scary games with John Carpenter?
There are limits to what I can pull off.
All right, fair enough. What do you got coming up this weekend?
I got to finish Alien, and then I start on Mordor. That's kind of the game of the moment, and I want to definitely start digging into that. And then I will hopefully finish D4 this weekend. That's probably
cool.
I need something tonally different, and D4 seems about as far away from Alien Isolation as you could get.
That ought to do it. Yeah, that'll definitely put you in a different mindset.
And then so next week, some Shocktober content will start rolling out. The movie lineup went up. I have not watched any of those films yet. I don't stick to the movie a day. It's more just the fun of picking 31 movies and then watching as many as you can.
Right.
Throughout the month. And then I've talked to you, and we have to figure it out with Rory, but we're going to try and do at least a couple horror casts of some degree throughout the month, in which I don't know. We'll talk about horror movies. Maybe we'll pick out some of our favorites. Maybe we should talk about Alien. That might not be a bad one to pick.
I actually did just rewatch Alien not that long ago.
I think I'm going to rewatch it this weekend obviously because it's number one on my list and Isolation's coming out. So maybe we'll talk about Alien and some other stuff next week. But that should be fun. There'll be Spookin' with Scoops. John Carpenter has agreed to answer some questions. I have no idea what I'm going to ask him, but sure. Who's going to say no to asking John Carpenter more questions?
I love how tangentially connected now he is to Giant Bomb. Like, he has just opened this door where he is willing to answer these questions over email anytime we have them for him, but that's it. That's the hard limit, and I love that. I love that we just have that tiny level of access, and it's perfect.
Yeah. He won't answer. You won't get on the phone with me, but he'll answer emails from me through his webmaster conduit, which is just fine.
Yeah.
Philip Doug in the chat asking if I'm going to do a quick look for Alien. I am not. I believe Dan is playing the game for San Francisco, but because we're going to do Spookin' with Scoops, we'll play Alien, and so you'll get some Alien content with me, but I think someone else is going to handle that out there. Plus, it's nice to get a lot of my perspective on that game comes from a very hardcore horror perspective. I think it would be super useful to have someone that is a little detached from that respond to that game. My guess is more detached from horror you are, I think the more negative you might get about that game. I think that would not be super shocking to me, but I don't know. I have not talked to Dan about how he feels about that game. So there'll be a bunch of that stuff going up next week and throughout the month. But Oh, on Monday, we are going to be joined by centrist developer Samantha Coleman.
Awesome.
We're going to uh, definitely curious. I've chatted with her in private about this, but curious to talk about it on the show about her experience with early access and a lot of the stress that goes along with creating a game in the open like that. So that'll probably be a lot of what we talk about on Monday. But she'll be joining us then. She was on the Bombcast not too long ago, and she's just she's
She's
rad
my heated
rad
rival
people.
in the world of video game wrestling.
That's right. That's right. I forgot about that. So yeah, look for that on Monday, and look for my review of Alien on Monday. I'm gonna finish it tonight, and then I'll write it up on Monday probably. So, but that's going to do it for the morning show. Alex, I will talk to you on Monday.
Oh.